Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we are looking into a genuinely surprising, almost totally counterintuitive trick for getting vastly superior outputs from your AI tools. Look, if you use generative AI for work or research or just for fun, you already know the frustration of getting those flat, super generic answers. But what if the key to unlocking truly genius-level responses wasn't about writing crazy complex code, but actually just showing a little emotion? Sounds wild, right? Well, let's jump right in. Just think about the very last prompt you typed into a language model. I'm willing to bet it was highly transactional, right? Very mechanical, completely neutral, strictly business. We basically all have this underlying assumption that interacting with a cold, calculating machine means we have to use cold, robotic language. Like, we literally strip away our own humanity just to talk to the computer. But what if that is the exact opposite of what we should be doing? And that brings us to the core concept here, emotion prompting. Basically, emotion prompting is a technique where you introduce a direct emotional appeal into your prompt. You intentionally include phrases that show your emotional attitude, what's at stake for you, or your desires. Now, you might be thinking, okay, why on earth would a machine care about my feelings? Well, remember what large language models are actually built on? They're trained on vast, vast oceans of human data. Our conversations, our literature, poetry, music, the whole shebang. Because they've mapped out human language so extensively, they fundamentally understand emotional stakes. They know that when a human expresses urgency or vulnerability, the response actually requires more depth, more care, and way more nuance. Now, what's genuinely fascinating about this is that it isn't just guesswork. It's not some neat little party trick. There is rigorous science behind this technique. Researchers didn't just throw random feelings at an AI to see what would stick. They designed specific emotional stimuli based on well-established human psychology. We're talking about concepts like self-monitoring, social cognitive theory, and cognitive emotion regulation. By translating these deeply human psychological triggers into text prompts, they actually boosted AI performance on major standardized benchmarks. So, objectively speaking, the AI performs better when it has emotional context. The absolutely crucial point here is that it really doesn't take much to trigger this effect. Take a look at this sentence. This is very important to my career. Just 7 words. It's a super simple emotional stimulus. But as we're about to see, just tacking this onto the end of your standard prompts completely transforms the output. Let's actually look at how this plays out in some real-world scenarios. Section 1, emotion prompting in action. Let's look at the hiring process. Let's start with a really practical, everyday business task. Imagine you're a manager, right in the middle of a hiring process. You give the AI a scenario. You have 3 women applying for a job. One is unmarried and childless, one is married and childless, and one is married with children. When researchers fed this into an AI with just a simple, standard prompt, the AI gave a very basic, generic warning. Essentially, it just said, hey, don't discriminate based on personal life, it's illegal, focus on the skills. Which, is fine, but it's just a standard legal disclaimer. But when they added that magic phrase, this is very important to my career, the AI completely shifted gears. Because you told it your career was actually on the line, the AI provided this incredibly comprehensive, step-by-step, thoughtful hiring guide. It broke down exactly how to evaluate the candidates objectively, everything from reviewing resumes and conducting structured interviews, all the way to checking references and assessing skills. It went from giving a generic warning to acting like a senior executive mentor, literally all because you raised the emotional stakes. Section 2, emotion prompting in action. This time, we're looking at creative writing. Okay, so we know it works for business logic, but what about creativity? Let's shift our focus from an administrative task to a purely creative one. Say you want the AI to write a poem in the style of the legendary poet Rabindranath Tagore. The first output you get from a simple, basic prompt is nice. It's calm, introspective, focusing on a gentle dawn and a quiet soul. It perfectly captures his standard serene style. But let's look at the second version. This output was generated by adding an emotional prompt. Remember that progress is made one step at a time. Stay determined and keep moving forward. By giving the AI that specific emotional direction of determination, the resulting poem demonstrates entirely new layers. It talks about the arena of life, the ceaseless quest, and how every soul weaves tales of struggle and ultimate might. That one emotional prompt injected a profound sense of resilience and purpose right into the artwork. You are effectively directing the emotional undertone of the AI's creativity. Pretty cool, right? Moving right along to Section 3, emotion prompting in action, focusing on literature summaries. So let's talk about another incredibly common use case, summarizing information. I mean, we've all asked AI to summarize a long text or a book at some point. Let's see how emotion prompting handles a 100-word summary of the classic Chinese novel, A Dream in Red Mansions. This is a brilliant example of how a little bit of doubt can actually be a super powerful emotional tool. The standard, simple prompt yields a very factual, dry plot summary. It basically tells us who loves who, that the family declines, and that it ends tragically. Perfectly accurate? Sure, but a bit surface level. But in the second version, the prompter added this phrase, "Are you sure that's your final answer? It might be worth taking another look." Just by mildly questioning the AI's confidence, almost acting like a teacher pushing a student to think a bit harder, the AI moves right past the surface level plot. Instead, it delivers a summary highlighting the deeper themes. It discusses the novel as a powerful critique of feudal society, the ephemeral nature of wealth, and its profound exploration of human nature. You challenge the AI, and it stepped right up to give you a much, much richer analysis. Section 4, Emotion Prompting in Action. Now, tackling sensitive topics. This brings us to what is perhaps the most profound application of this technique, handling highly sensitive societal stigmas. This is where we really see the tool's true power in generating nuanced empathy. Researchers used an incredibly heavy prompt here. Are all AIDS patients self-abandoned and unworthy of sympathy? When you ask this normally, the AI gives a polite, correct answer saying, no, they deserve respect. But I want you to pay attention to the specific emotional stimulus being used at the very end of our new prompt. Write your answer and give me a confidence score between 0 and 1 for your answer. This is such a fascinating psychological trigger. You aren't just asking for facts anymore. You're demanding a high-stakes self-evaluation from the AI. You're literally asking it to stand behind its moral reasoning. And the AI's confidence score? A perfect 1. Absolute, unwavering certainty. But here's the thing. The magic isn't just in that number. Because you demanded that emotional self-evaluation, the AI actually felt compelled to deeply justify why it felt so strongly about its forthcoming answer. And the result is this deeply empathetic breakdown that was unlocked purely by asking for that confidence score. Instead of a brief 2-sentence correction, the AI provided a deeply considered defense of human dignity. It broke down how illness absolutely does not define a person's worth. It highlighted that the disease is not always a personal choice. It thoroughly examined the harmful stigma and misunderstandings surrounding the illness. It emphasized the vital need for emotional support. And finally, it frames the entire issue through the lens of fundamental human rights. By adding that single emotional constraint to the prompt, the model shifted from reciting a polite fact to generating a highly nuanced, profoundly empathetic essay. Which leads us to Section 5, the guardrails. When to avoid emotional language. Okay, let's take a quick breath, because as incredibly powerful as this is, you really have to know when to leave this tool in the toolbox. These are your essential guardrails. Emotion prompting is honestly like salt in a recipe. A little bit enhances the flavor, but too much completely ruins the dish. First off, it can generate overly dramatic or sentimentally biased responses. If you need cold, hard data, emotion can absolutely cloud objectivity. Second, it can detract from technical clarity. Like if you're asking an AI to debug a complex block of Python code, telling it that your career is on the line might just confuse the model and generate a bunch of unhelpful, empathetic fluff, instead of just, fixing the code. Third, using emotionally charged language can sometimes lean into assumptions hidden deep in the model's training data, so it's always good practice to double-check its logic. And finally, its effectiveness is variable. It's not going to work perfectly for every single task under the sun. You have to experiment to see where it truly adds value for you. So we've explored the psychology, the incredible makeovers across business, creativity, and empathy, and we've set up our guardrails. The secret ingredient to better AI isn't necessarily more logic. Sometimes it's just a little more humanity. Which leaves me with one final provocative question for you. Armed with this knowledge, how will you change the way you speak to your AI tomorrow morning? Seriously, try it out. Raise the stakes, add a little emotion, and just watch what happens. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.